Hello, everybody, and welcome to this series called Going Digital. It's basically a webinar style series trying to give schools advice about going digital in all sorts of shapes and forms. And as the series moves forward, we'll be covering lots and lots of topics. The topic today is all about really digital safety and well-being. And we've got a number of people who are delighted can come along today and present to us to try and cover various different aspects. Firstly, we're going to try and hear, if we can, please, from Natalie Shepherd, who's been involved with the Portsmouth Digital Project and getting really stuck into that. So I wonder if we can move over to Natalie to just say a few words to us, please.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Obviously, we are recording this so you can watch it in your own time. We appreciate how busy school leaders are at the moment. But when we came together just before summer holidays and we presented with our digital strategy workshop, we talked a lot about how do we work with the Demonstrator Schools programme and how do we make sure that actually all of that knowledge that is out there can be shared successfully and really take the legwork out of digital development so we can all move forward together. So Di has been working on putting the webinar series together. It looks absolutely fantastic. We're starting today with what we feel is the key issue, which is around going digital, well-being, issues of safeguarding and safety. I've actually spent the day today working with 12 students, training them to become cyber ambassadors, which is a Hampshire-wide project. Lots of your schools may be involved with it already. It's the only one of its kind happening actually nationally. Hampshire are hoping to roll out to other counties in the future. It's been a tremendous day, and just working with the students and hearing their stories around their experiences online really highlights that need, of course, for us to be integrating at every step of what we're doing and giving it as much as we give all the other elements of digital learning and development. So really excited to hear from the experts today. Thank you very much, and I will pass on.
I'd like to introduce David Wright as Director of UK Safer Internet Centre at the WSGFL. The WSGFL has been really instrumental in my knowledge and upkeep of CPD over the years with digital safety. So I wonder if I can pass over to David and he can share his screen with us. Thank you, David.
Di, thank you very much. And so hopefully you'll be able to hear me now. If you can't, then please if somebody can tell me, I will just as well share some slides. Wonderful, thank you very much. And hopefully now as well sharing these slides too. It's a great pleasure, great privilege to be able to contribute to this, and hopefully this some of the things that I'll cover may be of help. So just by way of introduction, as Di said, my name is David Wright. I'm Director of the UK Safe Internet Centre at SWGFL. We are the UK Safe Internet Centre is a partnership of 3 charities, as you can see there. So mine, together with ChildNet and Internet Watch Foundation. We are one of 32 European Safe Internet Centres. We have been a national centre since 2010. So 10 years this year. Gosh, time flies by. Time flies by. So we're responsible, as our 31 counterparts across Europe, for managing child sexual abuse material online, which is what the IWF does in the UK. We operate helplines too. I'm going to talk a bit about those later on too. And awareness raising is a central, the central pillar. And so that's one of the things, and the great example that we have, and the jewel, if you like, which is Safe Internet Day. That's where I'll finish on my contribution to this particular event. I should add as well, also we work and do some work for the United Nations, the ITU, particularly around child online protection and advice and guidance. It's a whole host of things. also as well as advising some industry. So some of the global safety panels like Twitter, Snap, and Roblox. So I just wanted to cover a number of things. So clearly the world has changed over the course of the last 6 months, and so what's we're kind of seem to be emerging out of this was the scenes in many schools, indeed across the world. It is nice now that we're now recovering, and schools indeed have reopened. But what we did see is this occurring then in homes up and down both the UK and obviously much further afield as well, particularly when we've got learning being migrated online. And so I think this is what we might well have envisaged in terms of some of that learning taking place online, with all the restrictions that were imposed over the summer. Now, one of the things that we did do, I appreciate there's a lot of information on this slide. We've recently led, on behalf of the UN ITU, we led the update of what is the Child Online Protection Guidelines, and to coincide with that, in June we actually spent some time compiling what's actually happened in terms of the evidence and the information that we have seen once led to the impact on children. And like I say, this notional digital migration that we all saw with the advent of lockdown or with restrictions, this migration online to maintain some form of whether it is socializing or entertainment or consumption or commerce, or indeed from a child's perspective, learning as well. This migration, all the evidence and the numbers we saw were extraordinary. Particularly from a UK perspective, BT reported between 35 and 60% rise in web access in the day across their network. Demand for information in Australia, news or demands and appetite for news content went up some 57%. Many of you remember, so Netflix added quadrupled the capacity it had in terms of delivery of stream services. Stream services like Disney Plus exploded onto the scene as well. So lots and lots of evidence around this digital migration. There was a statement, it was a soundbite that the EU's digital chief strategist made at this time, and said that amidst all the migration, we've had a crash test of everything digital, which I think a full-scale crash test of everything digital as we migrate online. I think only a few years ago that migration wouldn't even have been possible. We wouldn't have the infrastructure or indeed the services. In April, we saw warnings issued particularly by UNICEF, We Protect, and indeed Europol about the impact on children, particularly exploitation, and particularly as 1.5 billion children across the world were affected by school closures. Now, what have we actually seen? That's this third panel on the right hand side. What do we actually see in terms of impact and research? So we have seen an increase in particularly in people searching for child sexual abuse material online. In May, the Internet Watch Foundation, the IWF, in the UK reported blocking 8.8 million access to 8.8 million websites that they and their partners had actually achieved over that period, as well as indeed searches for child sexual abuse, as I said, had gone up, and indeed reports from national centres like the National Centre for Missing and Exploited Children in the States all reported increases in referrals around people attempting to access. In terms of the impact on children's health and well-being, a number of studies were published in May and June. One by Young Minds, which was a study of some 2,000 children who had previously had mental health issues, and 32% of them reported that the restrictions had made their situation significantly worse. We also saw studies by the Duke of Edinburgh's award scheme, which looked at some 10,000 children. But this is to do with going online. The Girl Guides looked at 6,500 15 to 18-year-olds of girls, and very much clearly saw the pressure about being online. 20% of that age group reported feeling a pressure to be online all the time. 26% reported having to conform online, particularly to do with when on social media. So this we compiled into a report that looked at the impact and the evidence, and this is published on the swgfl.org.uk website. So looking at exactly that. Over this period as well, we've published much guidance. So we've always tried to think ahead. And so what is the next phase going to be? Now, this guidance is specifically was aimed at schools, but is much, I think, more generally applicable. So if we go back to last March, we published this first guidance, safe remote learning. So ahead of closure, and the things to think about when schools are considering this closure. I should add, these are all published online. You can see there in that red bar, swgfl.org.uk/safe remote learning. So that was the first article. The second one, these were published, I should add. We compiled the seven most popular video conferencing platforms and services, and compiled information around privacy issues, around positives and minuses to do with these particular platforms, as well as, you can see the one for Zoom here, minimum ages. So the point here that in order to have the terms and conditions that Zoom, for example, operate, dictates that to have a Zoom account, you have to be at least 16 years old, making it in large part not particularly suitable for many schools. In May, we published this with schools being closed, or at least to the majority of children, and many teachers, many professionals working at home. We published this guidance about safe remote working at home for professionals. This kind of new world where they will be operating in isolation, perhaps at home in various different situations. So the things to think about there. Then we got into thinking about opening. The sorts of things that children or the schools should consider, given that children have been in the state of lockdown, and it is fair to say that that some children will have faced some very challenging situations, perhaps where home is not either a safe or B, a particularly happy place. So that will have ramifications or consequences around issues for reopening. Then in July, to coincide with the DfE, particularly schools in England, the DfE's announcement around additional funding for tutors, guidance around choosing online tutors. But making the point here that tutoring online is very much a regulated activity, and exactly the same recruitment and appointment processes that you would do for physical staff, you have to do with online staff as well. And that got us into thinking about all sorts of things about to do with expectations and helping to encouraging the thinking around, well, what are our expectations when we're running sessions online? And then the current advice around safer blended learning. Now, this is very much kind of here and now, and we encourage everyone, I say encourage, an expectation indeed that schools have this safer blended learning strategy, such that if there are local lockdowns imposed, that there is a strategy that tomorrow we can switch either all or part of our learning online, and that everybody, all our staff and our wider community, knows what to do in that particular event. And that's, I think, really important point. So just extracted the text from this. Again, this guidance is all published online. So I'm not going to, in any stretch, going to go through all this detail, but it's just to highlight those points, and it's broken down to three. So the first one here around leadership. So fundamentally, who is responsible for our safer blended learning strategy? And how are we going to kind of lead this if and when we do have these restrictions imposed? And like I said, I'm not going to go through all this detail. It's all published online. Because it is recorded, you'll be able to pause that and run through it anyway. The second group, what about expectations? This is a really important one, I think. So when we are running sessions online, what do we as a school expect? What about participation? Not every child will actually have access to perhaps ideal situations and locations or a quiet space. Many will perhaps be in their bedroom. And so what we would very much discourage or encourage thinking about where children can and do access these particular sessions from. Maintaining a central register, just in the same way that you would do with lessons, with tuition, with tutoring going on across the school, the same thing online. So having a central register whenever there is a particular sessions and interaction going on online as well. And so management of that is going to be quite a complex thing too. Then the final one around preparations. I made this point already. So being really clear that that we are all prepared and everybody knows what to do in the event that we have some particular local lockdowns. What if there's any reporting mechanisms that are changed, or if I'm at home, how do I, as a member of staff or indeed a child, report any issues, concerns that I have because I can't actually access school? So what does all that look like? And making sure that everybody is indeed familiar and prepared for that eventuality. So those kind of three key things I think are indeed helpful. Just wanted to give a bit of update and signposting for a couple of things here in terms of whether this is preparation as well. So 360 Safe, Evolve, and indeed sources of support. 360 Safe. This is our self-review tool online that we first published in 2009. And what we also do is on an annual basis publish an annual assessment report based on the data from 360 Safe. It's used by some 14,500 schools across the country, and which has been just a privilege. And so all that self-assessment information enables us to determine a whole series of things. And so as part of this annual assessment report, I say it's actually authored by Professor Andy Phippen from Bournemouth University, and it enables us to understand not what we think, but what we know about school online safety policy and practice. So with absolute certainty, we can say that filtering, monitoring, policy are real areas of strength. Equally, we can say with authority that staff training, community engagement, governor training are all amongst the weakest areas. And this spans some 21 different aspects of broader online safety policy and practice. And you can see a link to the report there. So swgfl.org.uk/360 report 2020 is how you'll find this. Actually, this 10 years, this report marked the first 10 years, and so we do actually reflect back on the progress that we as a country have made with regards to online safety. I should add as well, so today, today being September the 30th, we released a schools online safety index, so where we've done some comparison across the country with information collected and compiled across different local authority areas around performance and engagement based on that particular data set. Moving on to Project Evolve. Now, one of the things that we did, and this goes back before Project Evolve, thinking about a lot of investment has been made and prioritisation, investment in educating and informing children. One of the realisations that we did have is that a lot of that investment is really focused on the harms and indeed online harms. We have been quite critical of in years gone by of schools who have had what we refer to as a manufacturing approach to online safety. We'll wheel a year group into a school hall, we'll show them a video, wheel them out, and then the next year group comes in and show them a video. That video often is something that will depict harm, and often extreme harm, on the premise, I think, that well, if children can recognise harm, they can identify it and navigate their way around it. And I think that has got a part to play. But when you learn to drive a car, did you just sit down and watch films of car crashes? So if I can recognise a car crash, therefore I can avoid it, so we don't have that in the first place. We clearly don't learn like that. And so this Project Evolve is the culmination of years of work in terms of, rather than focusing on the harms, we should be focusing on what children should know, what their skills should be. And so it goes from, it's actually built on top of and connects through to what is the UK Council for Internet Safety's Education for a Connected World competency framework. And we've also mapped in UNESCO's digital competency frameworks as well. And so it goes from aged 4, every single year group, through to 18. And across these 8 different strands as those progress in terms of children as they grow up. And I think this is really important. So if I'm teaching 10-year-olds, or if I'm a parent of a 10-year-old, or I'm teaching year 7, well, what should those year 7s be capable of? And so start to describe those competencies and those capabilities that those children should indeed have, such that when they get to the next year group, you know, it builds year on year. Many of the resources too have focused on particular issues. So, for example, sexting. We produce resources about sexting, and they are then applied to 14-year-olds, but it makes massive assumptions on what they already understand, or indeed misunderstandings about what they understand. And so that's why I think all of this is very much age specific, and there's scope and sequence as we go through all these different eight strands. So just as an example, for this is for 11 through 14-year-olds through health, well-being and lifestyle. These are examples of the particular competency assessment statements that were included within Education for a Connected World. What Project Evolve then does is it then forms activities around each of those particular competencies that can be used either by teachers or indeed by parents using the classroom or indeed at home. The hugely exciting bit, so it was only last month we released all the content with Project Evolve. What we're now working on is the assessment mechanism, so that we can enable schools to actually not just deliver particular activities, but then assess children against them as well. So that is projectevolve.co.uk. In terms of support, I mentioned we operate helplines. So here are 3. So 2 of these will be relevant in this particular context, but I'm going to merely just mention the 3rd. So the UK Safer Internet Centres helpline, the Professionals Online Safety Helpline, was established in 2011, and it supports you, the children's workforce, around online safety issues. Most of the issues, the safeguarding issues that you as a school or as an organisation will be managing will have a digital dimension. And the helpline here it sets out to remove some of the technicalities and the technology from those safeguarding instances. So saferinternet.org.uk/helpline is where you'll find information around that. Report harmful content. This is much newer. This is only launched last December. This is actually for anybody over the age of 13 to report legal but harmful content. Now we've classified content that we think is legal but harmful into 8 different classifications. So, for example, online abuse, impersonation, that type of thing. We will always encourage people, users, to report issues directly to the social media platform or indeed the provider. And that's what, so report harmful content will provide you some direction about how you might want to do that. If you've made that report and the response you've got, you still have a particular question or indeed concern, report harmful content is actually then built into their flows. You can report that to report harmful content. They'll provide you with some additional information, some contextual information about either why no action's been taken, or, as in half the cases that have reported to us, we'll take that on and make representation to get that content removed. We're at 92, 93% takedown rate for those cases that we do take on representation. So reportharmfulcontent.com is where you'll find that particular service. Both of these during COVID have seen a dramatic uplift in terms of responses, but it is fair to say that the 3rd has seen the most dramatic rise. So this is the revenge porn helpline. Excuse me. So dealing with, by definition, adults is who they'll support. We've seen over a doubling of cases over the course of lockdown. So just the penultimate slide here in terms of just some a shout out for other resources I thought may well be particularly helpful here. And so some additional resources here that may be of help. So Online Safety Live. Online Safety Live is the backbone of our outreach program. It has been since 2013. So it's a delivery of update information on an annual basis right across the country. Now, clearly, those 471 events now, for the moment, will be taking place online. But we're now starting to plan a return to running events into 2021. So onlinesafetylive.com is where you'll find information out about that. Whisper is our anonymous reporting app. And it was one of the things that the decision we took as a charity was to donate Whisper over the course of the restrictions and lockdown to enable schools and other organisations to maintain contact with children who weren't at school or with them. So it's a button that implants on your website to enable people to tell you something anonymously if they don't have the confidence to be able to tell you that face to face, but can quietly, as it says, whisper it. Reputation Alerts is just is another app, but the thing the other one wanted to highlight here is test filtering. So testfiltering.com. We've published in 2016 definitions to support schools in England and Wales around their obligation to provide appropriate levels of filtering. And so this little utility you can run and it'll give you characteristics. It'll test different elements of your filtering system. So whether your filtering provider and your filtering system uses information from the Internet Watch Foundation. It includes aspects, the list, the URL list that the Home Office and the Counter-Terrorism Police actually compiles. And then more recently, we've also included testing to see if there is adult or filtering for adult content as well. So it just gives you a little rundown of how your filtering solution, the connection you're on, actually performs. And the last one here in the top right there, which is Swiggle. Swiggle is our child-friendly search engine, swiggle.org.uk. It's aimed at primary-aged children, primary-aged settings. So what Swiggle does is actually built on top of Google custom search, but what we've done is we've overlaid additional kind of safeguards. That age group are notorious, I would suggest, for misspelling things. And so even using Google Safe Search, if you search and you misspell something, the responses you get forgive me, may well be not what you were expecting. So one thing that Swiggle does is it prevents you from searching for particular search terms, and so then the responses that you then get back are delivered back by Google Safe Search. Equally, we've stripped out the AdWords and comments from the responses you get back. So swiggle.org.uk is like I say, our child-friendly search engine for primary-aged children. Which is on to the last slide, and I mentioned at the outset Safer Internet Day, which, as you can see here, is on Tuesday the 9th of February 2021. It is our single day in the year where we focus, we as a nation focus attention on this particular subject. Last year, or this year, through the evaluations, Safer Internet Day reached 49% of children within the UK. Which is an amazing figure, given it's just a single day's activity. This is marked in 170 countries around the world, and so from a UK perspective, a whole series of activities are going on. The theme next year will be around critical evaluation, which when it was first announced in the summer, there was kind of questions raised, but now talking to so many different children, particularly given our migration online. That's the challenging of content, and how do I understand the authenticity of information online. It's proving to be a particularly popular and very, very relevant subject. So if I haven't mentioned it already, Safer Internet Day next year will be on Tuesday the 9th of February. Make a date for your diary, for your school calendar. Doesn't really matter whether we're at school or indeed at home. We're always going to be online anyway. So it's a date for your calendar and some plans indeed for marking, for celebrating Safe Internet Day 2021. And that's me done. There's just some information here with some contact details for the team, SWGFL and the UK Safe Internet Centre. So if there are any questions after this, then indeed please drop us a line. I hope that's been helpful, and some pointers as rattled through various different things, and look forward to answering some questions. Di, back to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, David. That's a real pleasure, David, having you speak to us today. I know that the SWGFL is on the top of their game, and so is the UK Internet Centre, and that just reinforced that to me. There's a wealth of resources there for schools to use. If you don't know where to start there. From my point of view, straight away. So thanks, David, once more. We're going to hand over to Mark Sears now. Mark is head of Northlands Wood Primary Academy. It's one of the primary academies in our trust. And Mark's been working for some time now with digital safety. I remember quite a number of years ago, Mark, sort of talking to you when you had a role at another school. All about digital safety, and I know you're quite passionate about it. Mark's going to give us some perspectives from a primary headship point of view and primary school on digital safety. So over to Mark, please.
Di, thank you very much. It's been wonderful to hear from David the national picture, and indeed the platform which eSafety is launched from, and just I feel really privileged to have the opportunity to share what eSafety and indeed computing in its entirety looks like in a primary perspective. I just want to start by giving a little outline about technology at our school, at the academy, and then, as Di said, roll into a few of the areas where we work with eSafety and promote that safer online access. So it's fair to say that technology is very much alive in our school. It's very exciting, and it's very much about how we deliver our teaching and learning. It's something that we very quickly established, that children were coming into school every day with a really good knowledge bank, an increasing level of knowledge and understanding. And we wanted to build on this and further challenge our children right from day one. So we quickly established that the existing curriculums we were working with, that there needed some evolution of these. They needed an opportunity, both from a safety perspective, an eSafety perspective, but also the skills and content that children are engaging with. And so we have been working and developed our own curriculum, which had eSafety and online safety running through it. So every one of the units, we built strands into those of the eSafety element, so that when the children were accessing their learning, whether that be through coding or through right down to sort of research and other sort of computer-based tasks, they were aware of the safety elements that went alongside that. We not only worked on that with our pupils, but we also were alive to that with all of our staff, ensuring that right from day one there was high level of CPD, that the teachers and support staff were receiving that knowledge, that understanding from known experts in different fields, so that what they were then delivering on was accurate and it was up-to-date information. So that's something that we have maintained a real strong belief in. And a few things now that I'll share with you are the nuts and bolts really of how that's delivered and how that actually lives out in each day at our school. One element which we do with this is through our digital leaders. we quickly established that the pupils often were the experts in the classroom. They often found a higher knowledge base than some of the staff, and so it was right and proper that we considered how we could use this sort of peer-on-peer teaching, and indeed allowing our pupils to become those experts in the classroom, not only from teaching content and sharing their skills, but also in terms of how to maintain that safety online and the sort of things to look for when indeed you are researching on the internet, or just using the iPads in the classroom. So the children in those digital leader roles really rose to that challenge. They had another level of safety and awareness that they were sort of trained in, and they gained some of those skills from visits to different places such as the Apple Store, and indeed attendance at e-learning conferences and such. So we do invest heavily in our pupils, and making sure that they're aware of their role to play, not just at a filtering level from a whole school infrastructure basis, but right down to the individual child and the role that they play in their own safety and indeed the safety of their peers. We also recognise that when teachers go into teacher training and they have that time at university, that again is a key part of their education. And so we have hosted a number of students from different universities and helped with their learning and their teaching of the modules around what e-safety and online safety looks like in a primary school. And they've been really grateful for those opportunities where they've come in, they've learned alongside us, they've had conversations with our children and our staff, because what we know is that when you're learning anything and when you're looking for the best way to do it, actually having that opportunity to do it in a live working school it is such a wonderful experience and wonderful place to do it. So that's something that we are looking to continue and working with different people in different phases of their education and indeed their careers. We have annual safeguarding training at school, and the core component of that is e-safety. We certainly, the modules we deliver on and the awareness that we raise in our staff is alive to all of the latest issues and the latest concepts which surround making sure our children are safe when they're online. And as I mentioned before, all of the units that we teach and the sessions that we deliver, they maintain an awareness of children being safe at different times, thinking about the truthfulness of what the children are seeing and reading when they're researching and being online. Picking up from what David concluded on, we do see and recognise our Safer Internet Day every year, and this is through, in a primary setting, through a mixture of assemblies, a range of activities, talks from professionals and experts that come in that raise the profile of staying safe online and picking up on some of those themes and messages. These are then taken back into the classrooms. The children regularly produce posters linked to them, or indeed PowerPoints or slides or presentations, which then they feed back into the system for their peers to learn from. We really are keen on children teaching children, because that's something at primary level that really works well for us. And parents are also brought into this understanding through Safer Internet Day in a number of different ways, largely because where we build on the expertise of some of our parents because of their fields of work, the other parents then respond in a really positive way to this, and they see the importance of it and the relevance of it, and realizing that actually they do have a very key part to play in pupils' safety and children's safety at home. And this very much dovetails into the partnership that we have in primary schools between that homeschool working. A lot of the e-safety elements which I have to deal with as head teacher are not things that come from things in school. Often they are things that come from home and things that the children have either seen or been exposed to, or indeed that they have engaged with peers or with other children outside of school. And this more recently is around how they're using mobile phones and tablets and devices. It's the sort of communication that's going on across online gaming, the sort of games and materials that children have been exposed to, which have different ratings that they haven't yet reached the age limit to correctly access them. And obviously there's an education there for the children as to why they're in place, but more so I find, and increasingly so with the parents, and often a naivety from parents as to why those labels are in place. Again, the conversations I have frequently with parents are around children being able to access things online and the parents not being aware of this. Too commonly, parents feel that a device they may have and the filtering they have in place at home means that the child can't access certain things. And actually, it's only 1 or 2 points you need to make, and then it's a light bulb moment almost, and it's like, oh yes, so they can access yes they can, and oh, well, what do we do about it? And then you do get into a really good conversation around how you can support that family with their pupil and with their child. And that is a lot of what I spend my time doing. And indeed, so much the case that we wanted to bring together something which we called a digital safety forum, which is made up of staff, it's made up of parents, school governors and industry experts, where we really were sharing some of these ideas, sharing the sort of latest figures and things that were coming through, and having a considered and joined up approach to how we might support some of the further education of this, and thinking about how we can gain more of the parents' trust in the fact that we know what we're doing, and the fact that the messages we were providing is because that's what we're seeing and hearing. And that started off really well. That it's out of that we have been starting to do some vlogs and YouTube posts, and there really has been an opportunity for parents to step into that and to hear more. Some wanted to join the forum so they could share their knowledge. Others wanted to share experiences where they had seen it firsthand with their children. And some of them wanted to join it because they were just intrigued and curious as to how they could further work and support their children at home as well. So one thing we are really proud of and we do pride ourselves in are those relationships we have at school with the parents and the families. And that really is at the crux of how we look to support our pupils, both in school and, as I say, outside as well. Linked in with this, we are keen advocates of the Hour of Code Week, where each year we bring in parents and grandparents and they come and work in school, learn alongside their pupils, and that again gives us an opportunity to talk to various people in households around what we use the internet for and how we can stay safe when we are on it. The final point I'd like to make is around the new RSE curriculum. So there are strands in there that we have already embedded into our curriculum about staying safe online, looking at things around ensuring that people are who they say they are when they're online, and indeed steps to take when you might feel unsafe online and what to do on those occasions. We certainly within the school use technology a lot, it's fair to say. We use it for all sorts of different things, right from coding through to producing all sorts of documents, working within different platforms, because we know that ensuring our children are ready for the next stage of their education and indeed that lifelong learning that we want to instill in our pupils. We know that technology is integral to that, and ensuring that children use it responsibly and effectively really is what makes the difference. In February, we were blessed with an Ofsted inspection, and the inspector saw our new curriculum and actually commented on how she felt it exceeded that of the national curriculum because of its focus on where our children were at, and indeed the measures that we were putting in place to stay ahead of that curve in terms of where the children are and what they're coming in with. So we do pride ourselves in that, and we're very open to working with schools all across the country in lots of different ways as we further that experience for children. And so to be part of the DFE demonstrator programme is a real honour and privilege for us, and allows us to tap into some of that and deliver in ways that we feel we can support and we can work with other schools. Certainly what we do at this school we feel is very strong, and the chance to share that to whoever wants to know more and is interested is certainly something that we love doing and have a real excitement in. So hopefully that gives you a little flavour of what we do and how we approach it, some of the feelings and things we're seeing across the primary sector, and yeah, some things from that. And if there is any more, then there will be opportunities and for questions and answers later. So Di, if I can, I'll hand back over to you, and thank you for the time.
Thank you, Mark. Well, I'm going to step in instead of Di because we've got a bit of a technical issue, but that was really helpful, and I think schools listening will really be able to take heart and hopefully take some of the aspects that you've talked about and maybe take them on in their own settings. I think particularly parental engagement is always a struggle with a lot of schools, so it's really nice to hear some ideas on what you're doing in that area. And I'd like to now introduce Holly Easton from the Sussex Learning Trust, who's the Learning for Life coordinator, and she's going to give us perspective on wellbeing across the trust and what they've been doing to assist all their children in the trust from primary through to secondary during this period of lockdown and then coming back into school. So over to you, Holly.
So our challenge as educators is to protect and promote our students' wellbeing whilst teaching them how to navigate the digital world they live in. We have a duty of care that is even more important when we bring the digital world into the classroom. The growth in emotional disorders in children between 2004 and 2017 is a serious cause for concern. The findings in the new categories, such as the prevalence of mental disorders in 2 to 4-year-olds, as well as 17 to 19-year-olds, show new areas of risk and evidence of distress, which are important to understand and to track. It is hard to deny that the growth in mental health disorders is in line with the growth of social media and the digital world. 20% of adolescents may experience a mental health problem in any given year. 50% of mental health problems are established by the age of 14 and 75% by 24. 10% of children and young people aged 5 to 16 have clinically diagnosable mental health problems, yet 70% of children and adolescents who experience mental health problems have not had appropriate interventions at a significantly young age. The risk associated with the digital world will never be eradicated, but through education and support we can minimise these risks, and we should aim to provide our students with the tools and strategies they need to ethically use digital technologies. Emotional well-being refers to our emotional quality as an individual, our emotional experiences. So healthy emotional well-being promotes positive mental health. Emotional well-being has been defined as an overall positive state of one's emotions, life satisfaction, sense of meaning and purpose, and ability to pursue self-defined goals. Elements of emotional well-being include a sense of balance in emotion, thoughts, social relationships and pursuits. A lot of young people are finding their purpose, investigating their core values and learning about social interactions and developing personal relationships online. This isn't either good or bad, however it can be dangerous and ultimately destructive to their well-being if they are not properly educated, guided and supported through this process. This is difficult as adults in their lives are generally themselves in the dark when it comes to how to support them effectively. If you grew up without digital technologies from a young age, it is easy to dismiss the digital world as something separate from our reality, and often even referred to as not real. This is not the case for our students. The digital world is part of and an extension of their lives, and a huge part of the reality of their human experience. We must respect this and anticipate the risks and issues that may arise, not wait for the issues and then try to solve them. So what do we need to consider as educators? What are the risks to our students' emotional well-being? Well, it's best to start with the three main aspects of emotional well-being and investigate how the digital world affects these. So resolving personal conflict and managing emotional responses. These skills are traditionally developed through interaction and socialization with others. However, as more and more time is spent online, we are starting to understand the influences from the digital world are having an impact on our students. For instance, online media will be conditioning our students to accept certain behaviours and emotional responses as healthy or normal. Whether or not this is positive or negative will depend on exactly what they're exposing themselves to. The main influences in the sense will be social media, entertainment and news. So how do we manage this? We must teach our students how to identify positive and negative influences on their emotional well-being. Get them to think about and answer these questions when determining if the influence is positive or negative. Is this content age appropriate? If you do not know, then ask an adult. What is the purpose of this content? Is it to entertain, to educate, or to influence? How does the content make you feel? Are you being encouraged to think negatively about yourself or others? Are certain behaviours being glamorised? If so, why? And what can you learn from this? Would you happily share this content with your teachers and parents? If not, then should you be exposing yourself to it? We must teach our students to be critical and questioning when it comes to digital content, encourage them to evaluate sources and developing an understanding that not all content, not every person or website has their best interests at heart. Developing and defining personal identity. Developing a healthy sense of identity related to race and ethnicity, gender, sexuality, disabilities, spirituality and other aspects of human differences is key to emotional well-being. The digital world can be such an asset to a young person trying to find others that represent who they are. Diversity of representation is not a reality outside of the internet. Radio, television and printed media have come a long way, but still are dominated by images of white, straight individuals. The digital world allows young people to have access to such a wide range of cultures, ideas, beliefs and individuals. The risk, again similar to any influences, are these influences and identities promoting their well-being? Are they identifying with healthy, positive groups and individuals? If not, this leaves them open to self-harm, eating disorders, anxiety, low self-esteem, abuse and even extremism. How can we protect our students from negative influences regarding identity? How can we teach them that their actions online create an identity for themselves, a digital footprint in which they leave themselves exposed to criticism, abuse and bullying? Starting points for this would be to help them understand the permanence of digital interactions. That online identities are a fraction of reality. What you see is not what is always true. Some online media outlets may seek to reinforce unhealthy stereotypes, that social influencers have agendas, money to make and followers to gain. The images relating to body types and beauty standards are very rarely real images, but almost always digitally enhanced. This means these are unattainable and false realities. The extreme views and groups that promote them are dangerous and designed to entice followers. Forming and maintaining meaningful relationships. Strength of our real-world social connections has weakened since a peripheral awareness of someone's virtual life is increasingly considered as sufficient emotional investment. On the other hand, this peripheral awareness has allowed us to extend the reach of our digital identities to a point where many of us have friends on our social list, but whose relevance or connection to our lives is negligent. This has fostered a feeling of loneliness despite our hyper-connected lives. That is a quote from Identity in the Digital Age from 2018. As this quote suggests, a digital friendship and relationship formed online do require emotional investment. We can widen our friendship circle and maintain connections with simple likes and quick comments. This can help with emotional well-being, as being part of a community or pack is a central part of the human experience. However, it is the quality of our relationships, not the quantity of them, that improves our emotional well-being. The new RSE framework for schools promotes the teaching of healthy relationships. Now we should be teaching our students what makes a good, healthy friendship and what does not. This should extend to online and be part of the curriculum. It is important that our students are taught to consider the following factors when it comes to developing and maintaining healthy friendships online. You should avoid making friends with or having conversations with complete strangers. There's no way you can know exactly who they are, what their intentions are, and if you are safe. Never plan to meet them. What you say online has the same impact as if it was said face to face. Think about what you say and how you say it. Bullying is bullying no matter where it takes place. Strangers' opinions of you have no impact on who you are and what you stand for. Do not allow unhealthy relationships to continue online. You owe no one your time and attention. There is no pressure to maintain many friendships online. There is no substitute for social interaction and what you can learn from healthy, real-world relationships. Focus on your relationships with those in your life, such as family and school friends. I'm going to conclude by emphasising the importance of continually auditing and updating your school's policy on curriculum content relating to students' emotional well-being in relation to the digital world. Technologies are advancing and society is adapting so fast that we will be one step behind if we do not make the effort to always be relevant. Emotionally, the digital world can be a wonderful source for connection, education and enlightenment. However, it is full of dangers, risks and problems. Our students need to be educated from a young age to understand the risks and know how to avoid them. Thank you very much. I'm going to pass you back to Di.
Thanks very much, Holly, for that. So I'm going to be the next presenter actually, and I'm just going to share my screen with you, hopefully to get that presentation up and running. Okay, so I'm going to try and give you a secondary perspective really of digital safety and well-being, and you know, we've had quite a lot of information already. One of the questions that you know comes to me straight away is digital by default. I think actually a lot of children are digital by default these days, aren't they? Really, they're born to it, aren't they? Their first image actually is taken, you know, in the womb, and that first image is probably put online by the parents. And so we're dealing with an increasingly digital generation, and obviously that's certainly very important to us at Warden Park where I work. We developed a one-to-one scheme a number of years ago using iPads. We have up to 1,700 iPads on site at any one time, and it's a very busy digital universe that we live in. So what's some of the things that have been instrumental to our thinking towards digital safety? Certainly, you know, when I look at this kind of picture, I really want you to calm down a bit really and relax, of course, that's why I give it to you. But apart from that kind of psychological arousal that I just gave you, I also want you to think about a landscape. I want you to think about the speakers that we've had so far and the very rich and diverse landscape that actually we're kind of trying to describe to you. It's a complicated landscape. It's full of nooks and crannies, as this one is. It's full of bits you can fall off of quite easily, in my opinion, as well, and get wrong. And so we've got to try and navigate through that landscape as educators, you know, to try and ensure that our children in our care have the best possible digital safety and wellbeing education. Of course, it's easy to demonize the internet. And if you look at this picture, if you remember it, it was from the London riots, and there was a lot of, well, proof at the time that a lot of petrol bombing and organisation was done through social media. And we could have that view. We could say, I think, as David talked about earlier on, that the internet is just full of harms and there's no positivity from that. And, you know, I think that sometimes we have staff and students that have that issue. But of course, this was the riot cleanup, and it was organised by social networks. And so from that point of view, you know, there's always a counter, in my opinion, of any harms that actually exist on using digital work with positives. And that's certainly something that we try to do here within the programmes that we teach.
I'm going to flick through a number of different things now. They actually come from some of Safer Internet Day's survey work that David actually mentioned earlier on. This was from 2017, and they are sort of things that give us the realistic picture. And I tend to use these with my staff to give CPD sessions to staff, and I also share these with parents. You know, the reality of how much digital information, as was previously mentioned, is being shared online. The issues with, you know, self-esteem. Holly's mentioned a big area that's really important to us, and that is your well-being, and certainly your emotional well-being and your mental health. And these areas are certainly very important. And, you know, a young person's idea of self and their identity is very, very important as they develop and they grow up, perhaps more so in any other time than in my sector, actually, in the teenage years, as students are actually developing. And of course, you know, we do have harms, and harms are a very realistic issue that we have to all think about. But there certainly are things which we can protect against, and certainly things, in my opinion, that we can educate against. And that's certainly the policy here. Although we apply filter policies and we have all our safeguarding in place, we don't feel that lock and block is the way forward. We feel that for secondary schools, certainly, that education is the way forward, and that's an important message that goes out to all my staff. We have various different themes running through staff CPD that we do here, and also themes running through the programs on digital safety and wellbeing that we run with the children. By the way, we call it digital safety and wellbeing. We don't call it e-safety anymore. We don't think that e-safety actually cuts it, really, because of so many wellbeing things actually going on within the environment. So therefore, we very overtly and upfrontly call it digital safety and wellbeing, and we try to tie it, as Holly has mentioned, into emotional well-being as well. That's really important to us. We use themes of image and video, of course, because lots of people are receiving negative comments from pictures or video, and that can have a severe detrimental effect on people. But then again, you know, they've got the power of switching those comments off. They've got a power of unfriending that person. They've got the power of what to do with that information, whether to ignore it or to take it on board. We think critical thinking is really important. Myself, I'm a media teacher, and so I teach this throughout my subject area as well. Critical thinking of media messages, critical thinking of that online comment. Indeed, very much about validation as well. And I think David mentioned that with a piece of work that's going to happen next year, the Safer Internet Day. The whole idea of validity and checking facts online and making sure that what you see on the internet is actually the truth. We move on through there, and we can obviously see that there's lots of evidence out there. By the way, this survey was taken over a fair sample of students. Lots of evidence that you know, we've got to think about the trust issues as well and the validity online. So, you know, is it all negative then? Because all of those comments are fairly negative, actually. Well, no, it's not. These are again some of the quotes from young people, and you can see that, you know, the use of the internet is really important, and digital tools are really important in someone's life, and they actually can be used for great good. Again, another piece of work that's been done, and I really highly recommend it, is this survey that was done for this year's Safer Internet Day, which is called Free to Be Me, and it's a survey again looking at how online identity is actually developed in young people. I think as educators, we've got a responsibility to understand how online identity is developed, and then to work with that to develop the right rules, the right rule sets and regulations from an early age, to develop the right thinking about digital and online work. as I scroll through, you can see some really interesting comments from this, and I recommend this as a piece of work which I'm hoping we're going to link later. The power of the image, as I said, goes on through some of the work that we do, and the positivity of using digital tools is something that we like to emphasize, probably more than the harms. And I take on board David's point of view that sometimes schools could be accused of almost a factory, really, of just churning in, you know, tick box approaches to digital safety. This is exactly the opposite of the advice that we're giving. We shouldn't have that approach to digital safety. We shouldn't just do digital, you know, Safer Internet Day once a year and tick the box and say, yeah, that's us done then. You know, if we open up the doors to digital working, then we have got certainly a responsibility, in my opinion, to also give some really top class advice as far as digital safety and well-being is concerned. And as I move through this, you can see there's lots of reasons why the internet is a good place and the digital tools are useful. We also cover some other topical important messages. Cybercrime is certainly on the absolute increase. You may have noticed that lots of people have taken the opportunity during lockdown and COVID to produce lots of phishing emails about COVID-19 testing and lots of phone calls, spoof phone calls, you know, and indeed identity theft is becoming an increasing problem. And it's one of the themes that we move through with both staff and students to try and understand that is a real issue that we need to all protect ourselves with. We also look at social media pressures. We look at fear of missing out, for instance. We look at peer pressure on products like Snapchat streaks. We look at self-image and anxiety. They are all the areas that we certainly cover. We also have quite a nice app system that's free to use for a number of schools in the UK, which is called Safer Schools. Every one of our students has this app, every one of our parents can download this app, and every one of our members of staff can download this app. And the app is constantly upgrading itself with video information, little tests, quizzes. Do you know this? Did you know that? And there's been a really positive benefit to us, and I'd highly recommend it to schools in any sections, actually. And there is a primary version of this app as well as secondary. I think this was already mentioned by David earlier on. This framework has been very important to us. This is the UK CISC framework, and we are currently working with that, and Holly certainly worked with that to put together our new sort of design programs on digital safety that we teach at the moment through Learning for Life lessons. And then involved with that is obviously Project Evolve, which has got some really great materials, and I highly recommend that we look at those as well. Another aspect which I think is really important is your staff. And thinking about professional reputation, and this is something that I certainly do with the staff here, and I talk about with the staff as we use more and more professional digital tools. We, you know, talk about their reputation online and how deeply that can start, especially from an early age. We talk about National Union teachers, a bit old, this one, it's amalgamated now, as you know, through their advice on being cyber safe and what the unions say should and should not happen. We work through that with them. And we also give case studies. And this is a rather shocking case study. It's a number of years old now. I think it was 2011 that it's actually happened, where obviously these are just a nice night out with a bunch of school teachers. What went wrong in this was that these images and a number of other images were actually just posted on a fairly open social network, and so straight away the professional integrity started to get questioned, these members of staff. I strongly believe that as a teacher I'm a human being, and as a human being I should have a life outside of work. But obviously we need to know and need to take care of then what materials we ourselves put online. And this unfortunately culminated in complaints from parents, a campaign from parents to get people sacked. And in fact, that is what happened in this particular local education authority. So there was a number of items there that hopefully has helped to try and go through what we certainly think about from a secondary school perspective. We definitely, you know, it's a big sign, your work in progress. This is a work in progress for us. It's a never-ending, always constantly reviewed program, and it has to be, because that's what digital safety and well-being is like. You know, digital tools sort of increase every day. There's a new app, there's a new system, there's the new current trend on the block, and we have to keep up with all of that. And that, to be honest with you, is quite a mammoth task. It helps in the secondary school, where you've got probably the wherewithal, certainly in a large secondary like us, to have someone like myself as an e-safety officer working on this as part of their job. But I do recommend that you know, all schools start thinking about where that responsibility lies, who's going to take that on board, and who could be the e-safety officer for that school. Is it going to be your DSL? You know, as a DSL, that's probably going to fall within their remit, or are you going to give that to another member of staff, you know, because of their expertise, for instance, in digital digital work. So that's me really for that presentation. What I'd like to do is try and just open up a little bit of discussion with everybody in the current room on anything that they've heard and said today, if at all possible. Has anyone got any additions to that? Hi, Lauren. I just noticed Lauren there joining Mark as well. So over to anybody want to just open your mics if you want, guys, and has anyone got anything to add? Yeah, David, please.
Thank you, Di. Yeah, it's just fascinating listening and watching, and you know, I applaud and congratulate everybody on the efforts that you've all clearly done. There looks at some great work there. There's a number of things in there. So as is often pointed out to us, which is I know we have Safe Internet Day, but isn't every day Safe Internet Day, which I think is so true as well. One thing that I was going to mention, and I think Holly, it was something that you said around some messaging, and so it's just a point for those perhaps listening or watching and thinking about the messages that we give to children and the relevance. We've done quite a lot of thinking about this recently, and it was actually sparked by Sarah Champion, the MP's Dare to Care campaign from quite a few years ago, and as part of this she had a victim from the Rotherham child sexual abuse, the tragedy, the tragic child sexual abuse case that happened in Rotherham a few years ago. So she was 14 at the time. Anyway, one of the questions that she was asked was, well, this was clearly a child sexual abuse scandal and online as well. And the question came, well, did you not cover this at school? You know, were you not, as a child, as a 14-year-old at the time, did you not do this? And the answer she gave was, yeah, but I didn't think it was relevant to me. And that was a catalyst, you know, that was a spark around everything technology. The only thing you can be certain about with technology is that it's going to change. That's the only constant, is change. But yet most of the messages that we give and we talk to children about are probably between 10 and 15 years old. So things like don't post personal information, you know, and with social media, that's the entire point. And so it's not necessarily about not posting personal information. It's around, well, what personal information and where does it exist and who can access it and what platforms am I posting it on and can it be shared by other people? Much more sophistication than merely just don't post personal information. And the thing that struck me as well was I mean, this is a more of a sensitive one around don't meet up with anyone you met online. Now, that's great advice. It is great advice, but children are merely going to model the behaviours or are going to acquire the behaviours that are modelled around them. And if you have a parent, you've got a single parent who perhaps is using dating services and dating sites to go and meet people that they met online. 1 in 4 young married couples in the UK met online. You know, so clearly there comes a point at which it's okay to meet someone you met online. And so the point here is that, well, if that's the behaviour that's modelled around those children, it's a normal thing. And so whilst they might be able to tell you these things, what they'll actually do may be something completely different. And the other point as well, tell a trusted adult, which is such an adult thing to say. As research, 74% of children involved in instances will only ever talk to their friends. So tell a trusted adult doesn't really mean something. If you ask a group of children that question, that's probably what you'll get. But will they do that? It's pretty unlikely. And so it's how we affect cultural change and its relevance in their world and how they can see them being part of that. And that's another reason I think as well about if we just merely show extreme harm to children, well, you sit there and it might be entertaining perhaps, but it doesn't apply to me because it's not my world. I'm not going to be there. Relevance and sophistication is so important, I think, in their particular world. That was just merely something that sparked in my head. I thought maybe will be helpful as a kind of contribution as well. Di.
One of the things I think that just popped into my head when you said that was the kind of work that we've done as well. I know Mark will hopefully echo this with parents. And I think, you know, you talked about examples there, David, and role models. And, you know, our parents are really massive role models to our children, you know, as are their siblings, actually. And again, we've, you know, tried very hard over the last number of years to engage parents and make sure that we keep on engaging parents. I think actually that sometimes can be really frustrating because sometimes, you know, I've certainly run parental evenings, you know, on digital safety where attendance is really poor. And so, you know, you kind of start to feel, well, you know, maybe they know all of this, you know, maybe we don't have to do all of this, you know. I think we just need to find other avenues, other channels. You know, we need to carry on. The app is from us is another avenue and another channel, you know, where hopefully a parent can, you know, increase their own education about digital safety as well, and look at their own bad habits, you know. And by the way, I look to myself, you know, in this with 2 children. I've got a responsibility, you know, myself to obviously think about that, and I think that's just an important aspect of our work. As I'm sure other people would agree, you know, that we, David, you said it right, that we're trying to change culture. That's hard. You know, that's really difficult. You know, if anyone sees this as a tick box approach, you know, they can have a checklist, they can do a couple of things, and they've crossed off digital safety and well-being. I don't think they're doing it right. And, you know, it's really starting to attack that a little bit and change culture in lots of different ways. Yes, Mark.
I think just to pick up on your point, Di, a little bit more is around the ages of parents and around that culture. So, of course, we've got young people that are coming into the world which are experiencing things maybe parents or other people in their family didn't experience and didn't have. And so there's very much that education that's needing to happen, but who are the people doing the educating when at home the parents are in the dark a little bit about it, they're unsure, they've got a naivety, and then who do they, and they don't want to be seen as people that don't know what the answer is, so they're maybe trying to cobble something together and not getting it quite right, and then that's when they try and look at the schools to offer that. But unfortunately, too often it's in a blame cycle or something. It's that, oh well, it's too late now. This has happened, and you should have done something about it. And so it is very much for us within the school sector to be alive to that, to be aware of it, and for us, the challenge is, to Di's point precisely, about how do you get that message out to the parents, because often they won't come and seek it until it's maybe too late, and it can too easily get lost in communications home, amongst all sorts of other things. So they're very, and that was one of the I suppose key remits of the Digital Safety Forum, was that communication, and because until you've kind of cracked that or really got a good handle on that, yeah, we know what we want to share is really valuable, but how do you make sure people hear that? So yeah, thank you.
I think Natalie, just before you come in, David, I think Natalie had a hand up. Sorry, Natalie, I missed you.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I just really wanted to comment on how thought-provoking all of this is. As you say, Di, it's you know, an area you enter into that you constantly have to be thinking about and paying attention to. But I think, you know, what the panelists have been able to offer today is actually a range of resources out there that we can use to start to unpick this, and really just to try to make sense of, you know, the depth and scale of those cultural barriers that you present. You know, we've been trying to just find out about digital access across our mat, and just running sort of simple surveys like that with parents and getting a response to it, and you're sort of trying to unpick what are those barriers around parental engagement, and how do we understand it and craft better ways of getting out there, and really think that through. So yeah, it's just been great sort of listening to everybody and reflecting on what you're saying, you know, for the challenges I'm facing within our mat currently as well.
David, you had your hand up. Sorry.
I did, yeah. Thank you, Mark. It was a point sparked by Mark, and so this point about parents. Now, certainly last year, and actually over the course of last month as well, we've had a number of cases relating to, you know, upsetting content online. Now, suicide challenges is one of the headlines. I am desperately trying to describe this without actually naming it, and there's been a number of like I say, of cases going back over years, and one of the things, and you know, there's what we've seen is loads and loads of warnings issued about these particular sites and naming these sites as well. I'm going to name it once, and if I could do that just once, it kind of, this is a box I need to put £1 in every time I mention it. So if we remember back to to March, the first week of March last year, and the Momo challenge. Let's see, that's the one and only time I'm going to mention it. We saw this frenzy, and a frenzy online of sharing warnings, now particularly parents, that this content online, and it's to do with suicide content. We've got to issue out warnings around this particular site. And we just saw extraordinary, like I say, literally a frenzy around it, and a media storm, and what were also referred to as hysterical sharing, particularly by parents, and that was then followed up by many schools. There was a particular poster that did the rounds. Now, our policy, and this is an alliance we have with Samaritans, with Internet Matters, with NSPCC. All around, not naming websites, not naming content is completely counterproductive. we did some research of that particular episode with Professor Annie Phipp published in April last year, looking at what referred to as ghost stories. And we took search terms from 2,500 schools across the 48-hour period, the eye of the storm, and concluded that searches for that site went up 45,000%. Which all we do by issuing warnings is you create curiosity and interest, and you drive people to the content that you have concerns about. It is completely counterproductive. And the concern, I'm sure everyone's concern here, is that, well, if we drive children who haven't perhaps got the capability, the resilience when met with content online, and folks, the internet has got some not nice content on it, it doesn't need us to drive them towards it. Is their ability to, those children's ability to manage it. So the plea here is that if you feel you have to issue some form of warning, is please don't mention the site. If we always talk about there's upsetting content online. If you encounter upsetting content online, then please just kind of come and talk to us. I think that episode, particularly last year, and we had it with another one at the start of August, and then we had one with content being shared across Snap and TikTok only 3 weeks ago. If it does also disclose that parents don't really understand how media works. So you read the headline, you then have a couple of bullet points, and then you often have share buttons, and so you've just essentially you're eliciting an emotional reaction to the headline to click share. You don't read the rest of it. It's irrelevant. So adults are reading and just sharing, which is clearly what media sites want you to do. And it just results in this frenzy, to be honest, in those particular situations. So as an organisation, as a school, please kind of have a plea to think carefully about any warnings you issue, and if you do, please don't mention the website, despite any guidance we see agencies sharing that content as well. But please think very carefully. If you see upsetting content, merely just come and talk to us. So that was a point, Mark, that occurred to me when you were talking. So
yeah, I think just talking about the content that you mentioned a couple of weeks ago, about 3 weeks ago. So we had a safeguarding conversation, my DSL and myself, about that, and absolutely purposefully said that we were not going to put that out, for that very reason, David. And I've noticed that I've also noticed that schools do sometimes get on that bandwagon and send out false information, actually. And I think we have a responsibility of, making sure that the information is valid. They get sent something through a parent, perhaps, and then all of a sudden that chain reaction set of dominoes, goes off, and we certainly have a big responsibility within that. Okay, has anyone got anything to add? Because I do realise we need to close. So thank you very much indeed. One thing that we definitely will do, I believe we can do this, Heather, is we will publish this video recording on a DFE website, and obviously Natalie will be linking that through yourself. But also Heather and I think we'll try and gather, and I certainly will do that, Heather, and curate lots of the resources that we talked about. So lots of the information that David's got from the WSGFL, the UK CIS framework, Project Evolve, maybe some of the stuff from Holly. Perhaps we could ask Holly for her slideshows as well, and add all those together. So we just form a nice little rich mini website on that. So those of you watching this, please watch out for that. There'll be a bunch of resources underneath which will hopefully give you some help and support. Thanks everyone very much for attending. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I look forward to the next episode of Going Digital. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Di. Thanks everyone.